Hello, my name is Merrick Allen, and welcome to day 25 of the 1660 Challenge. That's right, we're back on track, and if you don't know what the 1660 Challenge is, essentially, I'm going to be writing script every single day for 2 months, 60 scripts, 2 months. It's a great time through the end of February, and it'll be radical. And if you don't want to do scripts, you can participate along with me, or if you do want to do scripts, you can participate along with me. The whole thing here is to find something that you want to do every day for 60 days. So for me, writing scripts is the most helpful. For you, playing 60 new video games might be more helpful. I don't know, maybe you're a video game reviewer and you need to hone those skills in Cuphead. I don't know, maybe it's making 60 new paintings, 60 new sketches. The world is your oyster. That's what I always say. I came up with that term myself, and with that out of the way, let's get into things. So, you heard right, it's day 25, we're back on track, which means 1 video per day, and not 1 video that is actually 4 videos and is 16 minutes long. So hopefully this will be a little bit shorter than our normal thing. So, what was our challenge for today? Well, if you don't know, we have a calendar that kind of tells us when I'm going to write specific things. I have different prompts on it for different days that help me figure out what I want to write, because otherwise I would get really stale and I wouldn't be able to come up with new ideas and I would just get creatively burnt out, and I am. But more importantly, our prompt for today was ideas from a hat. It was ideas from a hat. It was another ideas from a hat, which is fantastic. I love this. This is one of my favorite things to do. So what was our word today? You might be asking yourself, what was our idea from a hat? Well, drum roll, please. Our idea from a hat for today, that is going to be our writing prompt, was harmony. That's right. Our prompt for today was harmony. So what did I choose to write about for harmony? Well, we didn't have any other restrictions today, so I didn't have to write within my means. This didn't have to be something I would be able to film tomorrow if I had the time and the actors and whatever. So I felt like I should try and expand it a little bit, and the way I've achieved that is in the script there is a multitude of characters that are all older, except there's actually one kid, which is harder than if they were in my age range, so I would have to find a kid for this. I would have to find a couple of older actors. There's a few locations, like I'd shoot in a bar as well as in the street, which you don't have to get permission for, as well as a dingy apartment. But a couple of those locations would be harder than others, right? Because, the shooting film on the street is not that hard if you're not concerned about getting a permit, which I'm not. So what was the actual content of this, though? We have the fact that, okay, yes, it was outside of my means, that's great and all, but what is the actual content here? What is the overriding concept? Well, you may have noticed I have a guitar in the background. That's not because I'm going to serenade you today, or because my diss track is done and I'm here to present it, but because today our script is a lot about music. It is in a very similar vein to, if you've seen Once or Inside Llewyn Davis, the main character performs music that is at least semi-relevant to the topic at hand. Basically, it's called My First Guitar, and it is about a very poor couple who is selling everything in their whole apartment, and the last thing that this guy wants to sell is the first guitar that he ever bought. And essentially, he goes to a pawn shop to try and get rid of it after he's made his peace with parting with it. And the person who runs the pawn shop says, we'll give you $35 for it. And so he just walks out of the pawn shop, sadly, debating what he's going to do, because otherwise, if he doesn't sell the guitar, they're not going to make rent, but $35 for one of his most prized possessions seems like a slap in the face, even though, it doesn't have any sentimental value to the person running the pawn shop. Reasonably so. So essentially, it's his moral quandary, him going around and thinking of what to do in this scenario, clearing his head, stuff like that. And it's a good time. It's a party. It's really great, but there's some nice twists and turns, some small things that happen along the way. He goes around, he whistles, he plays his guitar, he has a couple of moral questions that he tries to answer for himself, like he encounters a sleeping homeless man at one point, and he actually debates taking the man's money, because that's how much of dire straits he's in. So stuff like that, he thinks, what should I do? I'm very stuck, and so he sings his heart out, and By that I mean he plays folk music, sadly, on a park bench occasionally. But it's okay, you know, it turns out all right, I think. Not too melancholy of an ending, I should say. Should keep the kids happy. I would love to shoot this at some point, because it actually, even though it is outside of my means right now, I think if I was able to get a decent child actor, it doesn't really need to be great because it only has a couple lines, but if I could get a decent child actor and access to these locations, it would be really cool to film, especially if I made a second draft. And that's another thing with all of these. These are first drafts, so a lot of them, as I said in the past, in the very first video, a lot of them are not going to turn out perfectly in the first draft, and I don't think many writers do that. I was listening to this podcast the other day, and they mentioned this concept of like, well, the first draft, a lot of writers, 90% of that first draft doesn't make it to the final cut of what they're making, which I think is completely reasonable. For me, that is not the case yet. Maybe if I am better at writing, that will become closer to the case over time. But I think it's important to note that these are first drafts, so they're not going to be perfect, and I would really, again, if I did want to expand on these, I would have to go back and edit them down or edit them up, add things, fill things out, have some people critique it with me, and really dive into what the emotional core of each of these is. Because when you're writing in a sort of quality versus quantity mindset, you can really slow down and focus on those things. But the way that 60 and 60 is structured is more so just to get you writing, to get those creative juices flowing, as opposed to really stopping and slowing down and really being very precise about that type of thing. It's to get as in the podcast they put it, your inner editor out of your head. It's a very similar concept to what they were talking about, which I think is very great. It's really to try and just to get things out there as much as you can, and then you should go back later and think, okay, what did I do wrong? How can I do that? Because it's great. It's a great time. Sorry for that little diatribe there. Tune in tomorrow when I got some more magic up my sleeve, because that's all we have for today. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was a good time for me. I went on a little tangent there, but that's all right. You know, you gotta tangent every once in a while so I can stay sane. See you tomorrow.